And we want to bring in Andrij Dobriansky now at the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. He's also chair of UN Affairs for the Ukrainian World Congress. Andrij, it's good to see you again. We see President Trump saying that he wants a complete peace deal based on Ukraine ceding land to Russia. Do you see this as Trump aligning himself with Putin?
Well, I would be gobsmacked if this is something that the Europeans are going to go along with without first a ceasefire. President Trump made it very clear in his pre-meeting interview that if he left without having a ceasefire, he would view this as a failure. And overall, I'm appearing in international broadcasts in Europe and in Ukraine. Overall, it's a display of Putin having his own press conference in the United States more so than a President Trump press event. So for the rest of the world is trying to figure out what the next steps are. I think we're actually going to see this reaction in the United States today, later this week. We already have heard callers on C-SPAN calling in saying, what was this? I don't understand what's happening. And of course, President Trump's coalition involves a lot of media personalities, podcasters. What is their take going to be on this meeting, which clearly showed President Trump being deferential to Putin? And in the end, was there a ceasefire at all?
Can you point to specific examples when you say he was deferential to Putin? Was it the body language? Was it something he said? What were you monitoring for? And what did you see in this summit?
Well, first and foremost, we haven't seen President Trump greet a person with this much fanfare. We haven't seen F-35s come to escort any of our allies to the United States. And then we saw the limo ride, personally giving a limo ride to one of the United States' biggest enemies, in fact, a wanted war criminal. And then only speaking for 3.5 minutes after giving President Putin the entire time to dominate that press conference. Not only that, but we also have this ongoing war between President Trump and the press corps. He is not giving information to them, and therefore the Russian press, the propagandists that almost 100 who came over with President Putin were the ones who were leaking information to the American press. All of this made for, I'm afraid to say failure, but it wasn't a way for President Trump to dominate as he normally does. So I'm waiting to see what his reaction is to the domestic reaction, which is just beginning.
What would you say to those who look at the reception of Putin by Trump and say, you know, it's simply diplomacy? That's what good diplomacy looks like. That's setting up the art of the deal that Mr. Trump is doing. What would you say to that?
I would say if you were looking at Trump 1.0, sure. This is not Trump 2.0. We've seen a very confident Mr. Trump everywhere, whether it's, you mentioned the incident in the Oval Office with President Zelensky, also an uncomfortable incident with the president of South Africa. Other world leaders have been slightly embarrassed with him, but Trump has not had a filter for any of this, any of these meetings. He has traveled overseas. He's also not been shy with his tongue. And here we are to understand that he is being diplomatic. If that's the case, then how is he not being diplomatic everywhere else? He has a style. He has a certain panache to him, and we have not seen that in this meeting. And so I think that's why we're going to see some reactions. Now, we've heard some reactions from Charlie Kirk and others who are more politically tied in, but I'm very interested in what the Joe Rogans, what the Theo Vaughns, what other people who supported Trump openly are going to take to him basically being quiet while President Putin dominated this entire visit.
Trump rating this meeting a 10 out of 10. We spoke with the former U.S. ambassador to NATO on our air last hour, Ambassador Kurt Volker. He says that after the summit, it is Putin 1, Trump 0. What is your assessment?
Very much so. I mean, first and foremost, I see that Putin dominated this. Secondly, President Trump came in asking for a ceasefire. There is no ceasefire. Thirdly, there was an attack on Ukraine during the negotiations. So it wasn't just the fact that he couldn't get a ceasefire, but Putin dug in the knife and said, I can attack Ukraine whenever. And this is what brings me back to your first question about, you know, the possible peace plan. I would be gobsmacked if the European allies sat down, this coalition of the willing that's been aiding Ukraine, sat down with President Trump and said, sure, we're willing to work on this peace plan, but give us a ceasefire first. And this has been the problem with the United States and Steve Witkoff specifically, because he's been dealt 3 terrorist states to work with: Hamas, Iran, and Russia. Neither of them have been agreeing to ceasefires that have stayed. And that's what Europe is going to have to push for. And Zelensky is going to have to push for.
And Andrij,
some good faith.
We're out of time, but I have to ask, are you nervous at all about this meeting coming up between Zelensky and Trump on Monday, given how the last White House meeting went?
I think that if you put these men in a room together and have them talking without cameras or additional people, all the better. I think if we put it in a same situation where there's a bunch of people and there's chaotic situation, we can devolve very quickly.
Andrij Dobriansky, I really appreciate you taking the time as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha.